now, I think. Want to
Oh,
record?
Kim's been recording,
Oh, all right.
so we just got 10 minutes of of footage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's do another 10 on this question of life and why we value it.
Yeah,
And
good
what
topic.
is okay. You ready?
We're recording.
Recording. All right. Way ahead of me. Well, the question
Yeah.
for today is why do we value life if we do? And I guess for my part, I could say that there's a lot of craving for life in this planet, but I think there's also what serious death instinct. Um, but actually, that seems to me to take us away from the real question: why do we value life? And I, one answer is that we're scared of dying. We're scared of death. Um, that I certainly resonate with that myself. And also, though, it's a big inconvenience to die. Everything that you put together for a bunch of years is all wrecked. You
Right,
lose your
gone.
your your,
Yeah.
your driver's license. You lose your car. You lose your bank account.
Yeah, all that saving,
All the saving. It's all wasted.
cultivating all those relationships, being nice to your boss.
Right. Why would I bother if so there's the jolt of being taken out of a familiar space. Um,
Yeah, but for some people that's a release, right? They get relief from dying, right? Yeah, no boss, no credit cards, no bills.
No
You would
burdens.
think more people would be rushing towards death if if they saw it as a freedom. But I don't think that people are valuing life so much as in opposition to death. I think they value life inherently, and that they
sure.
see or they perceive or experience something positive in it, something that expresses something of who they are, of their nature.
Well, and it's all they know.
Yeah,
I mean, there's that aspect too. It's like
I,
life is all we know.
I think this valuing life inherently, I think it's true, and also at the same time, as compared to what, as compared to not being alive, which is what we're calling death.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think the reason that we crave life does have to do with we like it. We like the valuable things in it better than we like their alternative. At least we think we do.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that alternative? What is it about life that's different than death? You might say.
Yeah, I don't
How?
think
I mean, they're not opposites. That's for sure.
right, but I don't think we
Um,
can know that for comparison, or at least in our ordinary lives, we don't know that for comparison. So I don't think that can be a strong motivating factor. We
um,
have an idea about death, but we don't have the experience of it to compare with the experience of life.
well, we can speculate about it. I guess. I mean, that's all we can really do. I think
Right.
this question requires speculation.
Right.
Well,
But
maybe you could actually tell us some of the things about life that you think are inherent in life that are valuable, and we can decide one by one whether they're likely to be post life existence or not.
hmm well, one thing that strikes me is that we've been alive our whole lives, and you'd think we'd be bored with it by now.
Some
Hmm.
people are.
I mean, some people are, but I think the majority of people value their lives. I mean, you think about doing something, 24 hours a day for 30, 40, 50 years, you think at some point you get bored with it.
Hmm.
And it's true some people don't, but yet there's people who, after all that experience, they still value life. So I think it's beyond the habits of the mind. I think it's an inherent property of our existence that we value life, at least for the most part.
But you
And
could say, oh, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, part of what we value about it is one of its properties, which is change. Life is always changing, which keeps it interesting.
Hmm.
And it's hard to get really bored with life because it's going to change soon. So it's inherently interesting, and then it's always changing. So there's a dynamism to it. There's also growth involved. We're different, and I think we have an innate tendency towards growth. And so we value that in ourselves because we see that as part of the expression of life.
Well, to take the devil's advocate, I mean, you can certainly argue for many people that they have no real growth after age 4, and that life does not consist of life consists of static things that happen over and over again that you don't recognize in different guises for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
not real change, real growth. Real change and real growth are very hard to come by, I think. At least in a deep emotional, psychological sense, real change and real growth are the most difficult thing to acquire there is, because they go in up against such strong inertia for keeping things the same.
Well,
Our mind's tendency to keep things the same.
Yeah.
and that's just it. There are people who will fight tooth and nail not to have change.
Right.
So they're more comfortable with the status quo. So what do you say about those?
Yeah, I'd say that the power of inertia is very strong. And there's also one property of living systems is the property of homeostasis, wanting to sort of maintain
Right.
consistent boundaries. So I think there's a strong drive to sort of maintain a homeostatic situation in our organism that's biologically driven that people then extend onto their lives as well. But then you also see the movement of people who are really earnestly seeking growth, probably more at this time than any other time in history. People who are actually, going to growth workshops and wanting to find out more about themselves and wanting to grow in all kinds of ways. The human growth movement or human potential movement is huge. And here are people who are putting themselves into very difficult situations, sometimes painful situations, all because they want to grow. So I think that really is a testament to the power of the life force and its capacity to both overcome inertia and to overcome this biological tendency towards homeostasis.
Well, Kim, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to add one more thing. I mean, look at this guy, Felix Baumgarten, who jumped out of a balloon at 128,000 feet. So there's got to be something about life inherent in that. In fact, he said when he jumped out, his only thought was he wants to make it to the ground alive. So something about that extreme situation when everything else is cut away, he wanted to live. So there's something, I think, very pure and very true in that statement. He didn't worry about the fame or the fortune or everything that was associated with the record he was setting. He just wanted to make it alive. So that's why I say it's an inherent aspect of who we are.
Well, how I'm understanding what you're saying actually is the craving for experience, actually, because I think we do crave experience and we crave change, and you could say that nothing ever, in some sense, nothing ever repeats itself completely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as part of what we want out of life, one of the things we most want out of life is experience, is the ability to have new experience, and that is similar in context to what you're describing as the sort of desire just to be alive, and to continue to be alive.
And also to be fully alive, too. I think many people are wandering around in sleep wanting to know how can they live more fully. So I think maybe his initial impetus was to have an intense experience. But once he sort of got into it, he realized that what he was wanting in the experience was to be fully alive. So it seems like that was underneath all of his other wantings besides fame and fortune and experience.
We also spent 2 years preparing for it.
Yeah.
So the idea that, yes, he wanted to make it to the ground alive, in that moment, that there's a rawness in that moment, mm-hmm. right? But I'm thinking about the build-up to that moment of, making it to the ground alive and knowing that if you do that, of course, the build-up to that is the thought that I will be famous, I will have set a record.
Mm-hmm.
But when we can connect to those moments of the raw.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the survival of the organism, then I think that biologically driven aspect really comes into play.
Yeah, well, I also think we see life in its purest form there, right? It simply wants to exist and express itself and continue.
Well, he didn't say anything about expressing himself.
No.
Or life expressing itself. So there was a want there, which is, are we going to say that was an egoistic activity? Or is that the inherent life impulse is this want to be alive?
Yeah, and to continue to be alive. Life wants to
But
continue.
life does want to continue. The question, if the question is, what is life and why do we value it so highly? If you're saying that we value it so highly because we want to be fully alive, that sort of begs the question. As compared to what? What in what realm of our? I mean, being fully alive it can be compared to being half alive during life, or it can be compared to what you think happens after death, which is maybe no experience or no aliveness, quote unquote, at all. So, which of those are you referring to? And can you, if we're trying to understand the sense of aliveness, don't we need to bring in death to understand what it is about death that contrasts with life, in order to see what true aliveness is?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because maybe one of the reasons why we fear death is because we see it as the absence of aliveness. And because we love and value life so much, we naturally shy away from death.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, what Kim has said is certainly a factor for me as well. That our desire for life is just purely a biologically inbred into us by evolution over the course of millions upon millions of years of life on this planet. But that seems to me to be sort of the booby prize. I mean, it's like it's not. There's nothing exalted about wanting to survive because you have certain chemical processes going on in your body that make you run away from scary things.
Right. Right.
And one thing I wanted to speak to was the. I'm going to stop this for just a minute because we're at over 12 minutes, so